This video, I would like to discuss with you a specific instance of a investment banker who passed away. Now, full disclosure, I did work with this individual during my time at Goldman Sachs. I didn't know them completely too well in terms of their personal life and what was going on there. But I think it's an interesting story that everyone can learn in terms of navigating the very difficult environment that is in any investment bank. Everything I'm going to share with you is publicly available information that is available on public news sites, not discussing anything that would be private, which would not be discussed on a public news site. So everything else is here, right? So I want to explain to you a bit about this person based on what we have publicly available. This is someone who worked as a managing director in investment banking. He was around just over 50 around the time he passed away. And what ended up happening is he has quite a historic career working at major firms. He worked as an assistant vice president at Credit Suisse, vice president at Merrill Lynch, MD, managing director at Goldman Sachs. And also he worked as the head of commodities and covering aspects like that at companies like Macquarie. So he's worked Credit Suisse, Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, Macquarie, many top companies. He's known for his kind of strong work ethic and being quite professional and dealing with a lot of demanding roles and working across all these prestigious financial institutions. So let's look into what actually happened here. We have this news article that says he had a heart that was twice the size of the average human. He had a passion for fitness, and he was a former county athletics champion, which means he was quite successful in fitness during his younger age in the local community. Now, the life and circumstances here offer quite valuable career lessons, and they offer valuable insight combining what went on in his professional life and kind of his personal legacy, taking care of his family, right? So we're going to go through it in a bit of detail here, right? It mentions that he was 52 years old when he collapsed. He suffered a heart attack or cardiac arrest due to a heart condition that he had had. And he mentioned he kind of left behind his family members. He had 4 kids, and they are kind of going to continue his legacy given he's passed away. And he had chest pain and tiredness despite being quite physically fit. As you can see in the middle, that is Anil Karpal there. That's the guy in the middle. I think that's his 2 sons there. Yeah, 17 and 19 are his sons. He's the guy in the middle, quite big into fitness, working out, had his own kind of home gym, things like that, right? So I want to talk about some 5 career lessons that can really help us learn something from this particular individual case. Because there's this home gym, as you can see. If someone has a home gym and is physically fit, as you can see, typically it's not because they're not passing away due to a health issue, but he had ended up having a heart issue. Let's go through this in a bit of detail. So the first thing I want to mention to you in general, not specifically him, but just in general, okay? So I'm speaking in general terms, no allegations, no speculation, no reference to his individual circumstances. But when you are an employee at a company, even if you're senior, you're managing a team, and you happen to pass away due to a health issue, you should expect, how will your co-workers react? Your co-workers, in most cases, they're not going to appear at your funeral. They're not going to necessarily financially take care of your family. The companies you used to work at aren't going to give a payout to look out for your family, given you sacrifice so much time and energy to work there. You're not going to get any type of payout to help your family after you pass away, unless you have life insurance, which some people would have. And then what you're going to end up getting in effect is a lot of like fake sincerity from co-workers, right? As you could probably imagine, people with fake emotional outbursts that they cared about someone they used to work with. Lots of co-workers might not care about you. They'll talk badly behind your back. And as I say, they're not going to give any financial benefit to help you and your family, right? Particularly if you're a manager, co-workers might have had bad experiences from you. They might not wanted to have worked with you, or maybe felt like you were trying to be a controlling manager, all types of dynamics like that. And I always think about, not in this case, but other people I've worked with who would say completely crazy and really negative things about the manager or the co-workers behind their back. I think their life is going to end this way. They've got this, they've got that. This is going to happen to them, because people are really malicious at work. And then, like I said, if someone passes away, you're going to get the same way you have fake niceness, you have fake sadness. And this is how a lot of people react. Second thing is, when you have time off from work and you're sick for whatever reason, you should bear in mind, even though companies have official policies to protect themselves, they really don't care about you. And what I mean by that is, say you have to take time off work because of a heart condition or something else. the company will have to temporarily find a replacement for you. It could be temporary hire a managing director to cover for you while you're off sick for a couple months, right? But they'll always think about two things. Firstly, they'll be like, okay, can we replace you even when you do return with a cheaper hire, and then fire you a few months later when we don't have a legal obligation to take care of your health? You return to work, you're perfectly normal, then they want to replace you with someone who's going to be lower cost or less hassle, or they just don't like you. Or a company might say, well, the team's operating without this employee. Maybe we can just save money and have less management, less employees here. Let's just have someone working and doing whatever the team normally does with one less employee. They've passed away or they're off on long-term sickness. They just don't really care about you, and this is something you're going to learn the hard way. If you ever do have sickness, a couple months off work, whether it's a broken leg, a heart issue, whatever, you go back to work and all of a sudden they kind of don't want you there, and they just got to keep up the false pretenses until you take the message and they fire you, you get a layoff, or they just kind of give you a less important role with low salary increases. So these are the type of things you have to look out for, right? That you'll realize when you go back to work after being out for long-term sickness, the replacement will take your job and you'll be up for a job cut soon. Another lesson I want you to learn from this instance is the change of management above you. If there's a change in management above you and you're out sick, they're not going to know your reputation. They're not going to know you worked at the company for 15 years, done a great job. They're just going to see you as a statistic. And when you return to work, all the positive relationships you built at work, people might have forgotten about you, or they might not really have an interest in maintaining relationships with you because you don't have the leverage you did in terms of office politics. Senior management might not know your legacy in the company. They'll have no problem kind of getting rid of you and replacing you with some other no-name person you don't know who can do the same job. So that's the type of expertise or type of challenges you might have to deal with. And this is the thing, if you're working for a company, they're going to ignore the decades of sacrifice you had for the company, whether it's time sacrifice, energy sacrifice, sacrificing time with your family members, all this type of extra effort you put in. They're going to ignore that the moment you have a health issue, and they're going to try and distance the company from the health issue. Oh, they weren't responsible for your heart issue. They weren't responsible for the stress that you were under for several decades. Now, another thing to look out for is balance is key, right? Avoid burnout. So in this tragic case, we can see the extreme demand that high pressure roles, like at any company, not blaming Goldman Sachs, at any company, generally speaking, there's a lot of high pressure roles in these corporate jobs that can give you long hours, unmanageable workloads, and can lead to physical or emotional stress. And the priority here is no career success is worth compromising your health. You should recognize signs of burnout early, set clear boundaries. Even if you're given demanding tasks in demanding industries, remember your health is your wealth, and your family, you want to be around for them. No point giving them a wonderful life with a big house and a home gym and things like that if unfortunately due to health issues and workplace stress, even though you've earned the money and you've saved it up for them, that you can't really progress your life, right? Now, the other thing is to build a strong support network, right? You can see here the positive descriptions here. He had a loving family, a super fit person who was valued for prioritizing health, wellness, and fitness and looking after his family and things like that. So despite, having professional struggles, if you have a strong support system outside of work, which unfortunately a lot of people don't have because people are quite isolated these days, they can help look out for you and give you the support you need when you are dealing with challenging work circumstances, which will help lower your stress, right? Now, the other thing is around fair work environments. Now, typically these major corporations, not blaming Goldman Sachs again, but any major corporation, they're going to have all types of employee work-life balance talks, all those lectures that you have to attend. We're going to value mental health and men's mental health and people having time, parents at work to have time with their kids, things like that. These are all things that are covers. They're all fronts for the reality. Reality is they're going to give you too much work, we have very little free time, and then they're just going to say, oh, well, we did talk to employees about having good work-life balance. It's up to them to be accountable for themselves and leverage their time effectively or whatever. They'll give you some BS wording. They're never really going to give you the fair work environment that you need in terms of clear boundaries, in terms of clear work hours. They're always going to going to dump more work on you than there is time, right? And this underscores the importance of sustainable work environments, being able to stand up for yourself, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's through HR channels or things like that, seeing through the employee well-being BS and being proactive and setting boundaries, whether it's saying that you've got to spend time with your family in the evenings or before work, you're traveling a long distance, so you can't be working long hours, or you can work from home if that's more convenient for you. And the other thing is like a key legacy here is like living a life of contribution, because everyone's going to pass away. Father Time's undefeated, the Grim Reaper is undefeated. So what legacy you're going to leave behind? Some people it's family, having kids. Many people these days not having kids. So it could be glorifying your values, having your own side business that has a positive impact, charity work like that, things that value your community or your core belief system. That's quite important to consider too, because your corporate legacy, it won't really exist if you think about it, unless you're super senior like a CEO. You won't really have a legacy in your life if it's just based around your corporate professional identity, because they'll replace you. If this managing director leaves an investment bank, another managing director will step in and do the same thing, like a cog in a machine being replaced by another cog, and maybe a cheaper replacement cog. The second example here, where another Goldman Sachs, ex-Goldman Sachs employee is suing them over relentless workloads that he says led to a deterioration of his mental and physical health, dealing with heart issues, arterial fibrillation, if I pronounce it correctly, depression, suicidal thoughts, and things like this. And one thing I'd say, just looking at this image here, this is the Goldman Sachs office in London, which it's relatively new because they used to be based at another smaller location. When I see this office and I see these other major offices, a lot of them are built like this to kind of keep the employees there throughout the day. You have canteens offering a breakfast, lunch and dinner. You have kind of relaxation rooms. You have table tennis, ping pong tables. You have a workplace gym, yoga room, things like that. And those facilities sound good, but it keeps people kind of staying there 24/7 without having a healthy break from the workplace environment. So this is a good example here, because you have a former global head of recruitment, so quite senior person again, global head of recruitment. They want $1 million payout because they feel they've been overworked. They feel like the workplace environment was overly stressful, placing unrealistic expectations on them, leading to burnout. There's all these legal documents that he's providing around emotional breakdowns among team members, with one person crying in some of the team meetings. Goldman Sachs defended themselves by saying they only kept him working he only worked a few weeks at the company before he went on sick leave in April 2019 and repeatedly ignored managers' guidance to reduce his self-imposed workload. And they love to show things like this. Oh, you have a self-generated health issue. You have a self-imposed workload. When it might be in writing, they'll say, oh, do this at your own pace. But maybe on a phone call, they'll put you under too much pressure to do too much work in too limited time, to the point you hit your breaking point and the company doesn't have anything in writing or in record that they put you under that much pressure. So they play all these type of psychological games with you. I'm not saying Goldman Sachs, but just speaking broadly in terms of corporations, of course. Goldman Sachs is great reputation for the way they treat their workers. So, and then obviously we've got a lot of, like I say, very tricky wording where they can protect themselves. They say that the claim is completely without merit, which is questionable given he has got quite a lot of evidence supporting him. And then we have the broader context I want to focus on here, right? Which is this case is adding to other cases that have been out there for some time, right? Other employees who were at Goldman Sachs who said they were quitting because they were working 95-hour weeks. CEO of Goldman Sachs, David Solomon, is saying he thanked the group of employees for raising their concerns. I'm sure we'll see what happens to them. Will they get promoted or fired long term? I don't know how well they'll be treated after complaining about Goldman Sachs while working there. And it's talking about how they should look out for the best interests of clients, go the extra mile, even though they felt they might have been reaching their limits. There's so many contrasting messages you get from these major employers in terms of, oh, we're going to have work-life balance, we're going to have a pointless lecture about it for an hour and a half during the workday that you must attend, but then we're going to give you extra work and you're going to have to stay late and you just have to find a way of getting it done. This is the type of ridiculous scenario you have to deal with, right? So you can see this has been going on for some time. This instance where this employee was overworked back in 2019, the court case is going into account in 2025. So there's 6 years between these these type of things. And this is what puts off employees from pursuing legal action against major firms. It's like it gets dragged out. You have tens, hundreds, millions of dollars being spent on legal fees to get justice, to get some compensation back. You have other instances where employees pass away due to pressure and things like that. So just be careful about work-life balance, looking out for your best interests so you don't end up in a situation where it's a litigation scenario, or unfortunately you could pass away. So, my condolences to Anil and his family. I just wanted to cover this because I thought it was a good lesson for you to kind of learn from, right? Even if you prioritize your health, you have to think about, your mental, physical well-being, even emotional and spiritual well-being, which some people don't think about because they just think, if they work out, they'll be fine. But it's all about a healthy balance. So I hope you found that helpful, and I hope you kind of incorporate that when you do account instances at work where you're getting too much pressure from coworkers or your manager. Feel free to use the, I'm not saying you have to play an act, but playing the mental health card, the physical discrimination card, the kind of work-life balance card, however you want to discuss it, to defend yourself in those situations where they're being over the top. Because companies, they don't care about your health, but what they do care about is reputational risk from an employee passing away, or litigation in the future in terms of employees suing the company for being overworked. So those are the two things you could kind of hint at without being too blunt. It could be something like, okay, I'm not feeling well, I can't do that extra work tonight, I have to go to home tonight to spend time with family, or I can't work on the weekend due to personal fitness commitments or something like that. Some kind of therapy session you have to go to. These are the type of excuses you have to use to defend yourself in this kind of rigged game where corporations have too much power. Now, I've worked in the finance industry for over a decade at companies like Goldman and Morgan Stanley. I offer career advice. There's a link in the description if you want to speak with me directly, and I'll be happy to help you. Let me know how you feel about work-life balance in the comments. There are 2 recommended videos on your screen right now, and I'll see you next time.